Y'all want to believe that a woman with 8 children just suddenly turned into the type of bitch that tortures children over a year based on the relationship she has with what is obviously a closeted lesbian. Like, I was raised Jehovah's Witness. I've never told you that. My bitch gasped. I love that you're already disappointed and outraged. Like, you came on here fed the fuck up.
Because I could just feel it. I could feel there was going to be this, like, weird, not quite acknowledging. Like, they did, but it was this, like, weird gloss over everything. And I understand they only had, so much time. I would argue that story shouldn't have been done in less than 3 parts because there's a lot to discuss. So,
okay, you telling people. Well, let me say, I turned on Netflix. I don't know. And first of all, let me just say this. I only turned on Netflix because I was trying to watch Beyond the Gates, and Paramount Plus is doing fucking bullshit with my favorite black soap. And
I saw an ad for that. I was like, that looks like mess.
They pissing me off. All of a sudden, season 1 is not available. Then they had me go to get a second Paramount subscription through Prime Video just to be able to watch season 1. And I'm watching it, and then they got rid of that shit too. So, in an effort not to crash out, I opened Netflix this evening, and it was like the number one thing everybody's watching in America right now is this thing called Evil Influencer, the Jodi Hildebrandt story, and I know what the fuck that was. And Netflix had no trailer for it. I want you to know I clicked on it from 3 different ways on Netflix to be able to go to the trailer. No trailer. It was just watch it or not, bitch. You click it, as soon as you click it, play. Just start play. And then I texted Kenny like, girl, you watched this? Have you seen this? And then instantly you knew all about these people.
I knew about it already, so I had not watched it. And then I watched it and said I didn't have to watch this shit. I could have just said, because they didn't add nothing. And arguably,
I heard of the 8.
Arguably, they took stuff out that's really important, I would argue.
Okay, so you're going to have to tell the whole story in a second, because the way, all I knew, and it was only till halfway through because the entire documentary focused like almost entirely on painting like Jodi Hildebrandt as like the criminal mastermind, and painting Ruby is like just she didn't know she was
little white woman. She was a little rough on her kids.
Right. It wasn't until suddenly when they referenced her taking the child's bedroom, I realized like, I watched a fucking J. Aubrey video on this. I know who this bitch is. This whole family is fucked up. And also that brings me, I'm gonna let you talk for the majority of this. And my last thought I can say is the husband, the way they decided,
they didn't say shit about him.
Whenever I watch these things, two things be so annoying. Listening to the police try to like justify whatever, like preemptively justify whatever kind of slackness and negligence or complicity they had in the situation off. That's the first thing. And second of all, just watching how differently the criminal system is for white people. Because the way this man, they take Black and brown people's children from them every fucking day for less. Like, Black women will lose their children if they had a partner that did those things. Period. Like, they literally all the time, oh, you have a bad boyfriend? He did whatever, we're taking the kids. Meanwhile, just because this man said, I wasn't there for a year, I had nothing to do with it. It's like, oh, y'all want to believe that a woman with 8 children just suddenly turned into the type of bitch that tortures children over a year based on the relationship she has with what is obviously a closeted lesbian. Like,
they didn't bring up 2 little tidbits that actually solidify that, and that was another thing I was like,
I'm gonna need that tea. Mm-hmm. But they just decided, he was in there for a year, blah blah blah. But then I'm like, once I realized who they were, like, no, I seen the J. Aubrey videos. He's been there for this lady abusing her kid. And it's the reality is this has to do with customs because they in Utah. And let me just say this. I have never in my entire 32 years of living seen one good piece of press for Mormons. Like,
not
ever,
one.
And forever. To the point where this was me when they started like, oh, the kid was bound and tortured this week. Waiting for them to get to something that would surprise me. It's like, oh, there was a cult. Oh, they were trying to prevent people from being gay. I was so unshocked the entire motherfucking time. But I just wanted to say that husband should have 1000% been held complicit in some way. I don't give a fuck. But the problem is, to what it be Utah customs, when you heard the like police talking throughout the documentary, the one that was basically like, oh, Ruby was on before this. She was on the fringe of bad and good parenting. She was strict, because the problem is when the whole place is religious as fuck.
Their ideas of what
derogatory
abuse
in
is,
brackets, yes. Their idea of what's fucked up is the bar high to get the fucked up for them.
Like it was real high. It had to get okay. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, there was a big, very disturbing case of child abuse that happened in Utah. This was 2.5, almost 3 years ago, where a mommy influencer's son escaped a woman's basement, and they found out that the mom had abused her children with the help of a life coach / licensed therapist that was on probation for her licensure because she did a bunch of fucked up shit, which we'll get to. And it became a big story where everyone was like, oh my God, how did this happen? How did nobody know? That's crazy that this evil person was right next door. And I'm sitting there like, is this documentary going to acknowledge that there were plenty of people that knew that this type of behavior was going on and they just said nothing about it, and had been going on with different children, different people that Jodi Hildebrandt was the therapist for, that Ruby Franke was abusive to her kids prior to working with Jodi Hildebrandt.
Right, nigga, all of YouTube said that shit.
They were calling her abusive before she even linked up with Jodi Hildebrandt. So what are you talking about? So basically, this entire documentary was a bunch of bullshit that was pissing me off the entire time, because I was kind of interested, because a lot of the times when we talk about the story, there is a lot of focus on the mom influencer, Ruby Franke, because she was prominent. She was very, I don't think there's any reason you need to make your child a worker at any point and for any reason. So I already have a lot of gripes with mom family vlogging and all that stuff. There's none of the
family channels.
Yeah,
JR really turned me against family channels.
Because it's one thing for your kid. I personally wouldn't feel comfortable having my kid in stuff, but like, it's one thing to have them there here and there just because they're a part of your life, versus my kid is my content. And it was very much so they were having kids and they were the content. And they didn't touch on a lot of things that I thought was very interesting to not touch on. So that's what my nosy ass is gonna do today. Like, we just finished watching this, and I was like, y'all didn't bring up how Ruby... Did they bring up how Ruby's from a family of vloggers?
No.
Okay, no. So...
I didn't know that. Has vlogging been around long enough to have a family of vloggers?
There's certain things about Mormonism that is very crucial to a lot of this bullshit. There's a lot of reason why nobody said anything, why nobody thought it was that weird, why they were bloggers and vloggers. So Ruby Franke isn't the first of her immediate family. She has like 2 or 3 sisters and a brother, and all of them have channels. And her parents have a channel. Like, they all have channels. And it was all under the guise of, this is a method to spread the gospel and Mormonism. Like, we're going to show our faces. We're going to show Mormon families. They all have a channel devoted to, or had, I should say, a channel devoted to showing good Mormon families. The others got
rid of their channels now that Ruby done gone to jail?
I don't know if they've gotten rid of them.
Or they're just not popular no more?
So Ruby was the most popular, but she wasn't the first to do a channel. If I remember correctly, her older sister also had, give or take, 1 million subscribers, and she had to do a whole disavow of Ruby, but people were saying she was doing fucked up shit too. Maybe not to the same degree, but it was also like, yeah, all of y'all are like normalizing fucked up shit, but it's not as bad as it could be, so they don't think of it as abuse, right? So it's like, oh, we're just taking away something.
You're bad. Sleep on the floor.
It's like, no, you're not taking away, oh, you can't play a video game tonight or whatever the fuck. You're taking away their beds for months.
It's so annoying here, and I think he was a prosecutor, a police officer in the documentary. Say, oh, nothing. He said it was funny too because the police weren't on the same page, because the first police they had to spoke to watching the YouTube and seeing clearly that they were abusing the kids already, and then the second one, who I believe is maybe he was the prosecutor, was like there was nothing on their YouTube channel that like showed that Ruby was like abusing her kids, and I think that's funny because do you know how many?
No, I noted her. I noticed his word choice. Criminal. Abusing.
But again, do you know how many black and brown parents who are impoverished, like not because they're trying to punish their child or something like that, but will literally have the courts, ACS get involved and try to take their children from them for that? Oh, you don't have a bed for the children? That is very much so like a bare minimum thing that needs to be happening for the kids. That's very much so abuse. Food? But it's just funny when people get to decide how they like the court system is about how his feel about other kinds of like you hear them like they're like, oh, these are generally good people and
they're
what the
blonde,
kids like they believe
white, they're Mormon,
they believe in their goodness. They must have been led astray.
Also, they did not mention that CPS had been called at that house already several times.
They also didn't like they glided glid. I don't know. They just got past.
Went past.
Okay? Just sped past the fact that the two oldest kids were estranged from the family. So I'm like, how do you decide that the husband has no role in the abuse and the issue with the kids, but the only children who can cut off both? They didn't say cut off Ruby. It's estranged from the family.
Because the oldest daughter, her name is Sherry or something like that. Pardon me if I forget. She actually wrote a book, very much so a la I'm glad that my mom died. And I listened to it. I listened to the audiobook. And
what's it called? I'm gonna need that right now.
The House of My Mother or something like that. And she goes into detail. Very good book, actually. Just great book. Anyway, and she goes into
that's it.
Yeah, she goes into kind of not just Ruby, but like the entire dynamic before, during, and after Jodi Hildebrandt, because she's like, I was already essentially the act of child labor you were putting us through was abuse in and of itself.
Right.
Like we had to wake up at 5 a.m. You were filming us the moment we wake up. You were filming when I get my first period. You were filming when I was in trouble at school. Now one of the first things that people search up is me getting my first period. I'm like, do you not see how that's attracting like pedophiles and shit? It's weird. So you're weird as fuck for that. That is, I think, innately a problem. And then on top of that, she's recording like if her 3-year-old daughter forgot her, was it 3 or 5-year-old daughter forgot her lunch, and she was like, well, it's her job to pack it, so don't feed her anything, she'll learn because she's hungry. Like, what?
This is why I'm not gonna hold you. This is kind of why I think I have a problem. I think it's my first time really articulating it, but I have a problem with self-selling content, period. I kind of, to me, it's kind of important, I guess, as a person with a platform who makes content, makes media and all of this, it's kind of important to me that I'm creating something, that the thing that's being sold isn't me and my life, right? And there's so many people who, to me, it's like, you have nothing you could make or a value, whatever you could do, so you're selling self or the others. And I think like it's exploitative across the board. It's exploitative when you do it to you, when you turn everything about your life into like public access fodder and a performance.
You gonna love that documentary I was talking about earlier.
I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to watch it.
You want to wait till I get there, or do you want to?
I was gonna tell you that, like, you want to watch it together. Okay, good.
Period. Because it took so many turns that I was just like, wow, everyone sucks here. This is bad in every
Okay, we're gonna watch
direction.
it as a collective. So
Because
CJ and Darrell can watch it with
there's
us.
so much. Darrell watched it already. He ain't gonna want to. He was like, I don't know what the fuck that
please.
was. He was
I
like,
mean,
please.
that means him and CJ are gonna go play games. That's
Yeah,
what
they
that
can
means.
go. They can go smoke out and have a good time. But
Right.
like, yeah, everybody's terrible in that fucking documentary. Like, I don't know how y'all made everybody so bad, but yeah, like the idea of, I think it's one thing to do that for yourself though, as an adult. Like, sure, you've made that decision. I don't agree with it. I think it's a bad decision. It's another thing that your child is fresh out the pussy and you got a camera in their face and they got 2.4 million people seeing that child from birth, and every breath they take, their first steps, their first everything is now not just like a cute thing. It's like, oh, my kid just took a step. It's like, oh, this is a thing that I know will make millions. They made so much money.
I don't understand. I really don't. As somebody who's never watched, like, I've watched a lot of content about family channels. I do not watch family channels. I cannot, for the love of God, understand who and why and what for what reason is watching that. Like, who's feeling. And I know I've seen I mean, like, kids, I guess, like, interestingly, it feels like parents and kids, like,
Yeah.
independently, because, like, I've seen my niece, like, watch that before when she was younger, and I'm like,
I think
I don't fucking get it. Like,
there was only one channel I watched semi-regularly, and I watched it with my mom, and it was because they had the fattest baby, and that fat little shit was so cute, and I wanted to know what that fat little shit was up to. But for the most part, but it wasn't like it was about the child. It was a woman's life and she had a child, so naturally the child would show up, which is a subtle difference.
Yeah.
But even generally, she's like, I don't feel comfortable as they get older to have them as much on my channel because they are autonomous, you know, the whole, because this was like 10 15 years, like not 10, 15, was 2020, yeah, it was about 10 years ago. So, you know, she's like, the whole landscape about it, people get weird about my kids. I'm all right. I don't want to show them as much.
I don't even plan to let my kids on social media or smartphones. Like, I like literally don't plan to have it be a thing at all. My children got to like sneak somebody, like, let me see what it looks like. They ain't gonna know about that. Like
especially like their own accounts and shit. Like,
yeah, hell no.
It's one of the things that makes me so nervous about the prospect of like raising kids in the current day anyway. Cause like are weird, are like, I don't even feel comfortable, like, the idea of putting my kid's face out there because be AI and shit now.
Yeah.
And it's very weird. Y'all are very, very fucking weird.
I'm not sure. I don't think I'm going to do that. Like, I can't see it.
And it sucks. Cause I feel like my kid gonna be funny as shit. And I can't show that because y'all are weird. Like, even when I have a child.
I can't do it for sure. I've thought about it because here's the thing. This is how I feel about the internet. I have come to like see a distinct difference between social media and media. And I feel now I'm at a place in my life where I feel like I do media. I do not do social media. Like, I am not trying to be a part of it. I don't want to be in anybody's timeline. I don't keep the shit on my phone 99% of the time. I think social media and the internet, the way that it has catastrophic effects on our psyche, how we feel, our emotions, everything. And I know that as a grown, educated 32-year-old woman, the internet can fuck my mood and day up in a second. Somebody say something, just like everything about it, there's just so much coming in so much directions and it's all just bad. And I'm like, imagine I didn't have to be raised with like the internet and social media and these things were not what they didn't even exist, nigga. There was like high five by the time I was in grade 6. Like, my childhood had enough trauma and was bad enough, and I had enough depression and anxiety in high school without having these things.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, not only are these things horrible, but my children would be on these things as my children. So then think about how nasty the internet and how many people want to attack you just because it's you. Now they want to attack your kids because they know it's your kids and body your kids and make you feel. I don't want my children dealing with that.
I just hope and pray that my kid gets it. Cause like there was a lot of
like, so that they don't think it's oppressive that you won't let them on there.
Yeah, like when growing up, a lot of the times my parents were very like preemptive about stuff, but it was funny because it was shit that I didn't want to do anyway, so it didn't feel oppressive.
Yeah.
Like there was a part of me that already was like, I'm good. I have no desire to sneak out of the house. I don't like them motherfuckers enough to see them after hours. Like I'm not gonna do it. So like there was like, oh, who are you texting? I'm like, the people you know I'm texting. And I remember this pissed me off though. My mom had a tendency to go through my phone and then be disappointed that there was nothing interesting in there. She was like, you don't talk about nothing. And I was like, so do you want me to be a secret drug dealer? Like what do you want? I am doing the things that you think that I said I'm doing.
Going through your shit is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
and
try
then
my
being
best
mad.
to treat my children like, recognize their personhood and like, give them their own like privacy and space and whatever to this degree, but it's still gonna be a tight ship around here. And like my parents were my parents were but my parents my parents were strict, and there were certain things though that I fundamentally like agree with, like certain things that my parents were on that I like now as an adult agree with, and I feel like I was okay with it pretty early into adulthood. Like I got it. Like my mommy and daddy did not let me do sleepovers. I couldn't sleep at nobody's house. I mean nobody house. I'm talking family even. Like I couldn't sleep nowhere. You could sleep at our house, but we couldn't sleep at nobody's house. And you know what? Everybody, listen, 9 out of 10 I know have been sexually assaulted or molested by somebody, and that. Thank you, mommy and daddy. I have no problem with that, and and the same rules will apply. I sure ain't sleeping at nobody house, Kenny. Nobody else. Don't even ask.
I remember I was heated. I was mad because in 9th grade, my parents wouldn't let me go to Ohio with my friend, and we were gonna go to like a theme park or whatever.
Damn, it's the next state over.
Yeah, it's literally a 2-hour drive. They would not let me go, and I was mad as fuck. But then I thought about it. They didn't know them. I get it. Like, why would I no, I'm not letting you go there. And I was heated. I was like, they treat me. I was on Facebook. They treat me like an animal. They caged me up.
Oh my God, animal.
They keep me caged. Don't they understand? I deserve to make my own. Girl, shut the fuck up. You sound dumb as hell.
That shit is hilarious.
So Ruby Franke was already creating a environment in her home that her children were workers that she resented. She resented those kids. I think it's
the way she was talking about them in the journals is crazy to me, that they could be like, oh, they could just pin it entirely on Jodi who was controlling them. Like, she was referring to her children as the boy, the girl, spawns of Satan's, untitled, ungrateful brat. She hates those children.
She hates all of her children.
Like the amount of pejorative she called those children in her own personal, detailed journal accounting of those. She hates her fucking
and always
children.
has. That's the thing about the blaming it all on Jodi thing that I don't like. That bitch has always hated her kids. And like, even when you hear like her beginning story, like she, Mormon, got married really young after meeting her husband 2 weeks prior to getting engaged or some shit. They got married when she was like 19, 20, and now she's popping out kids every year basically for the next 10, 15 years, right? And you can tell, like, just the way that she talks about motherhood, that it feels like a thing that was forced upon her. And something that she resents, and something that she kind of uses her children as a way to
hey, Russet.
Yeah, she's in my lap making grunt noises like she got a job. He's like, you woke me up. Sorry, my leg
is on the chair over there.
But the way she would talk about those kids in her own videos, especially the early ones when she was less concerned about how things appear. Yeah. She hated them fucking kids. And she always hated them kids. You know,
like, I'm like, y'all think somebody with HR, all these like somebody just in 2 seconds, or was only a year, convince you to torture your children if you was into them? like to torture them?
So, like, speaking of the oldest two children, right? The oldest daughter made the book. the oldest son is completely doesn't want to be involved. Like, don't talk to me about any of it. I don't want to hear any of it. Leave me alone.
Mm.
And he, at least in the videos when he was a minor, there was a lot of him as like the troubled child.
Yeah,
A
I
lot of
seen
that.
that. Like he's the one they was like making a lot of the content around. Like, oh, we gotta send him to a wilderness camp and shit like that.
Sending him to a wilderness camp.
Aiden Shaw on Sex and the City, like in the reboot. I don't know if you know, but in the Sex and the City reboot, Aiden is horrible, bitch. Like horrible. I
watched some of the reboot. Which season
bitch,
is that?
right at girl, like the last ones. The
Oh,
full on
okay, I didn't
abusing
watch
his
it yet.
child. Like he doesn't his child has
Oh my God.
ADHD, won't let him take Adderall. He's like the child psychological stuff. He like sent the child to like this horrible wilderness boot camp. Like by the end of the series, the child is like gone, no contact with him. And he's like, I don't understand. What did I do to him?
I love. Oh, we can get on that too, because there was this woman who made a book about like coping as the mom who has all the
Children don't fuck
kids
with them
that
no more.
that all their kids have gone no contact, and basically how to deal with ungrateful children. And it's like, have you asked, why is it that none of my kids fuck with me? None of them. That's crazy.
I saw it. I've seen the opposite on Instagram. This mom who like makes content for parents, other mothers who she's like, we need to take accountability like this. She's
Good.
like, all my children have cut me off and I used to be really mad and now I see I was the problem. And like all their content is around like reaching out to like shitty parents who won't accept that it's like their fault.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, and I like that it seems like she's doing that regardless of whether or not her children decide to.
Exactly. Yeah. And not fucking with her, period.
Yeah. But yeah, Ruby was a terrible mother. And so, and as far as her husband, Kevin, he was terrible also because this was condoned while he was there. He was very okay with it. He was like, this is the way that you discipline your children. So this is fine.
On the call, the police told him, I don't know what about the footage in that documentary, like the footage of him finding out, again, it's just because he's a white man, he's white people, XYZ, why it's like, oh, he says he didn't know nothing about it and he was shocked, so he had nothing to do with it.
Also, I also remember that this is a very particular community in Utah. And yes. I think that also plays into their propensity to say, oh, well, I think he didn't know.
The Mormons, like
the Mormons, the close-knit, like secretive communities, the high control communities, it helps them sleep at night to think, oh, wow, he just didn't know.
But they was like, first of all, they tell him, they're like, let me tell y'all. They were like, since you weren't involved and you are the custodial parent, like, let's tell you what happened. And they were like, your young son was found running through the desert, knocking on people's doors, begging for food and water. He was emaciated. My nigga said, what does emaciated mean? Like the minute they say so, let me tell you something. You know, I'm talking about the education level of these people and how religion has taken them all down. Anyway. This man said, once they tell him what emaciated is, it was like, your child has been starving, sir, malnourished. He hasn't eaten. They said he was close to not being able to live from like lack of sustenance. And this man was like, and wiped his face, like, huh? He was like, oh, all this sounds like a made up story, but he didn't like give too much. And then when he was on the phone with her, he asked, how is my wife? Like, concerned about his wife. You're hearing that your child, you claim you don't know nothing about it. Abuse ain't never come to your mind. You haven't seen or heard from your children in a year. And you're hearing that your young son is running through the streets, damn near on the brink of death, begging people for food and water. And you're like, oh, that sounds like made up. How's my wife? And then on the phone with his wife, after the immediate call, the jail call, she's like, I'm being charged with 2 counts of felony, this, whatever. And he was like, oh, that sounds serious. But like no part of him. And they said the kids are going to be in the hospital for 3 days. And she was like, that's unnecessary. No objection, no nothing. I'm like, y'all think that man has no fucking clue what's happening to his fucking children? Are y'all dead ass? Like, what the?
So
they said the children were bound. Oh my God.
So that is what we're dealing with before Jodi. Right?
Yes.
It's taking away food, taking away beds, taking away threatening to cut your child's doll's head off on camera and putting that in vlogs. But she was just strict, she was just strict. Sending off to wilderness camp, and he gained 10 pounds from it. He got fed more in wilderness camp than he does at home. He actually gained 10 pounds from a wilderness camp. Do you understand that they're not feeding them kids if he's gaining weight at wilderness camp where he's walking 10 miles a day and shit? So, that's prior to Jodi. Now, the thing is about Jodi. Jodi is dangerous in a lot of levels because Jodi is legitimized by the fact that she is, depending on when you're talking to her, a licensed therapist.
Right.
She has the credentials as a person that should be able to provide psychological care and does so in a specific community that is very underserved in a science-backed way. Like there are certain, I'm sure, because they mentioned one of the women who like does she primarily talks
they
to,
brought a couple of the normal therapists,
the normal people who
serves
just,
that population,
right,
who can recognize that this lady's crazy.
One of the women that they interviewed, I had actually seen her in something else, and she was talking about how she's not even allowed on LDS recommendation lists because she thinks it's okay to masturbate and be gay. So they kicked her ass off. They don't recommend her. So
I one of these days, I think it's funny how there's like this universal consensus. It feels like everybody knows cults are bad, but the same people, 4 out of 5 people who know cults are bad are like pro-religion. Just throwing my hands up. Like does not no one see it's the next step? Like it's always, you ever notice the cults always like create a religion of some kind? It's always be like, do you not?
As someone with religious trauma, I will not opine on that. I no longer go to church, and that's all I'll say. My pastor was drilling for oil, so I'm not gonna... That is the thing I always bring up, and that really hones it in. Drilling for oil in Southfield, Michigan.
That shit's so funny.
Raised money for it, and then they didn't let them do it, and we never got that money back. So anyway,
you gave it to me.
You gave it to the church. You gave it to us, so we're gonna use it for our other stuff. Anyway, so Jodi, she has her, I think, her doctorate, and some of her research is in sexuality, which is also deeply ironic because I think it's pretty clear that Jodi has I don't know if this documentary really brings it home, but I do think that there's tinges of it. She was getting a bunch of people who would go to her, usually for marriage counseling, and
she was trying to isolate their wives from them.
And every single time, the husband would be like, she's telling me I have an addiction. I do not have an addiction, usually to pornography or something like that. Or if she was, there was this one kid who's of age now, but he was like, my parents found out I watched porn once, and then they sent me to Jodi Hildebrandt, and now I'm an addict, and I'm in sex addicts conversations, group meetings with people who are talking about how they have incest fantasies and shit. And it's like, he's 14 and he watched porn. Like, okay, have a conversation.
He was telling grown man, oh, you watched porn once this year? You're a deeply sick, twisted, addicted monster.
If you watched porn, everyone has an addiction. They honed in on pornography in this documentary. But if you came in and you had never watched porn, she gonna find something else that is an addiction.
Right.
She would say that
I'm using God to do addiction recovery. Like that was her ministry.
Everybody that came in had an addiction, and the only way to fix that addiction that she prescribed you with was her principles of truth, which was the shit that she used as these vague kind of, not even scripture if you were using it, if you were trying to be particularly religious. It was just like I say what the principles of truth are. I say what living in truth is. I say
I agree to let
whatever.
Jodi run my life.
Yes. And essentially it's, you're coming to me desperate. Maybe your marriage isn't going so well. Maybe you do have some trauma with sex and sexuality, probably from the church. And now I'm coming to you for help. And you say the only way you will be free of whatever turmoil you're going through is if you listen to everything I say as a licensed therapist.
And somebody who has the voice of God.
Well, that comes in a little later when she started getting more loopy. But in the beginning, she's just a therapist that has very, like, unconventional ways of going around about therapy. But a lot of these people have never been to therapy, for instance. So they're like, okay, this is how it goes, I guess. And also, she was one of the most recommended therapists from the LDS Church. So, which is also a conflict of interest, because what would happen is the church would pay for or subsidize Jodi Hildebrandt's therapy.
Which probably, oh wow.
So
which probably seemed to them like, look at the church caring about us and our mental health, like, you know what I mean?
The church congregation, some of the pool of the money that they would give would go towards funding Jodi Hildebrandt, which is why she was in a $5 million mansion. What fucking therapist is in a $5 million mansion? What is she doing?
What was crazy is her, like, her obvious obsession with Ruby, and being with Ruby and like doing whatever to them kids. The fact that beautiful $5 million house she was getting ready to sell to go torture the children in the desert.
Again, in a more isolated place. Too many neighbors.
Exactly.
Too many neighbors, even though the neighbors...
Too many neighbors for them to run to and ask for water and food.
That's the other thing that they don't really hone in on in the documentary. They set neighbors as if they are close. If you actually see the way the house is positioned, that house is easily a 5-minute walk away from either...
anybody else.
Any direction. So if that kid went to 3 different houses... he was easily out there in 100-degree heat with no shoes, emaciated, for 30 minutes, an hour, looking for people to answer the door.
Right.
So, with wounds that we'll get to, if and when you want to keep it in. Damn, Resi, you grown and like you got a job.
That's just out of snoring on the chair. Like, she's so tired. She's like,
I had daycare today. I had to run my gang, and that's a lot of work, Mom. You don't get that.
I had to run my gang.
But so also another thing about Jodi, again, it's already a conflict of interest that your church is recommending this woman and they're using their funds to pay for it. So now your therapy also has to be in line with staying in the LDS church. Right. So it's already a conflict of interest there. And the longer that we can keep you in therapy this way, then more likely you will be to participate more in the LDS church and vice versa. So that's already a fucked up thing. And like I said before, they kicked off any therapist that had any halfway decent science-based thing.
Anybody that cared about the rules.
Anybody that cared about like human rights or like health or psychological health, especially in regards to like sexuality. But I will say what's really interesting about Jodi is that the common denominator is that she hated men. She hated men fundamentally. So regardless of if you were having issues in your marriage and it was or wasn't your fault as a man, you weren't just a human, you were a abuser. You were abusing your children. You were sexualizing your children. I don't think they interviewed this guy, but there was a man who was doing interviews about it because he had also been a patient of hers. And he was one of the whistleblowers for the Boy Scouts of America.
Mm.
And he was one of the children that were assaulted during the Boy Scouts of America. And one of the things that he was going through was trying to go to therapy to heal that. Now that he was an adult, he was like having his own children. He was in a marriage, you know, he was trying, and he was also Mormon.
And Jodie is who he found, is who he
And
ended
they
up seeing?
sent him to Jodi. And Jodi claimed,
Jodie said, "You sick, nasty."
Jodi said that he shouldn't have children because he was assaulted. And that means you're going to assault your child. And so she had his wife go into the bathtub while he was in there, wash their kid in the bathtub, and then start playing with his penis. And when he got an erection, she said, "You sick bastard. You are a pedophile." And then took the kid away and left him. And for her, Jodi, she was like, "That's the proof. Jodi showed me. She showed me the light that you can't be around my kid." So they got divorced.
The gag was the projection. Like, once you heard about Jodie's actual life when they were talking about what she wrote in her home book and on Admission to Trauma, it seems so clear to me. I think Jodie hates men and children. I think, first of all, men
She hates men, she hates children, and she's a closeted lesbian.
And I think her being her closeted lesbian and her trauma and her religion all tie in to why she hates men and hates children. It feels like she talks about being abused by other kids, like when she was a kid, like being sexually abused, which lots, unfortunately, not why my parents let me sleep in nobody's house, common. I think what has happened is she's come on, I think, two fronts. I think she's come to believe that children are capable of evil and sexual abuse and all of this. And the next thing, why she sees them as like, you know what I mean? All this like unresolved trauma and evil and stuff she's projecting over there onto these kids. And then two, she clearly was trying to isolate these women from their husbands. Like,
another thing they don't bring up, because I had already clocked something. I was like, something is giving, you're making this everyone else's problem and you just want to kiss girls. Just go kiss girls, bitch. Just go kiss a girl.
Clear. Like, oh, you have a husband? He's gonna have to move out. Also, can I move in?
So the niece, they are non-binary. There's a non-binary word for niece.
Is there?
Yes.
I've been looking for. I think
it's nibbling.
Nibbling? I've heard nibbling, but I was like,
that word.
It doesn't eat.
Their name is Jessie. So Jessie, when they were in high school, they were pretty clearly queer. Very much so. They refer to themselves as someone with female anatomy. So they were kissing girls, and you know, as a Mormon family, their parents was not okay with that. So they sent, amongst other things, they send them to just stay with Jodi for an indefinite amount of time. They just drop them off at Jodi's house. And they talk about just the torture over the course of like a year that Jodi put them through. And this would have been in like 2010. So this has been going on for a very, very long time. She was
reporting it to the police. And the police.
Not only that, prior to that, again, they don't have the time to actually talk about it, I guess, but Jessie said that Jodi would say that everything that they say is a lie, to the extent that they started duct taping their mouth so that every time they're in public, at church, for instance, they're like, "Jessie, why is your mouth covered up?" And Jodi would be like, "It's because everything she says," she would misgender her, "she says is a lie." And Jessie is like, "I'm getting to the point that I'm believing it, and then I'm getting tortured." And Jodi is going on and saying that everything that I say is a lie, so I'm just making up shit so that she'll stop torturing me in some way or another. That's why it got to like crazy shit. And so it comes up later. Also, they didn't bring this up, I guess, because Ruby starts saying that her own children started admitting to these like heinous shit And Jesse was like, don't believe that shit. They're torturing them kids and they'll just say whatever to get you to stop fucking torturing them.
Right.
Like, one example Jesse gave was like one time they brought them out to a desert, made them run up and down a mountain for 6 hours.
That's so crazy.
No water. And then at the bottom of it, Jodie is like, you're so good. You finally did it. You finally, you gave yourself over. You sacrificed yourself over. And then those moments would reinforce that they're just trying to continue to get that from Jodie. But one of the things that Jesse brought up is like, my aunt is queer. My aunt is queer. And she doesn't see it that way because she wants to do jumps and all this
I
shit
heard
around
that
it.
I am not gay because I am divine. And that's the funniest shit I've that's the funniest announcement of being gay that ever was. Like, I am not gay, not because I am straight, but because dog.
So Jesse, actually, there's 2 explicit moments that it's actually brought up. Jesse says in this interview, one time I'm talking, and one time my aunt says, I'm not gay, but if I were to have like a romantic relationship with another woman, it wouldn't be gay because it would be like a loving, caring, intimate relationship and not this like carnal, I guess, lust-filled sexual one. And Jesse was like, so you gay? That sounds like you gay. Sound pretty gay to me.
Sounds like the kind of relationship she was trying to have with Ruby and these women moving into their house. Like,
and then another thing with the oldest daughter, Ruby's oldest daughter.
Gay? Before you be excited, is it not gay
to be in love with a woman?
Yeah, you like Ruby, you got husband and you got 8 children, and this lady, you move your husband out to move this lady in. Y'all stop doing the family channel with your husband and the kids, and it's now you and this lady talking about raising kids together called Moms of. That's not gay to you, lady. You're a lesbian.
It's also interesting because like Mormonism isn't hugely big on divorce either. And,
I know.
And Jodie was very vehemently against men. And so she was often telling these people to get divorced, get rid of this toxin, this man in your home. She'd also been married once or twice too. And that didn't go very well.
Yep, she had and 2 kids of her own, right? That don't fuck with her.
I know at least one don't.
Yeah.
But, and that's what people started to notice that were interacting with her. They were like, how are you telling us how to have healthy relationships and nobody fuck with you? Nobody in your life fuck with you. Your kids don't fuck with you. You don't have a thriving marriage, even though you're a marriage counselor. Your kids don't like you. It seemed like everybody that worked with you, most of them come out of it saying, that was fucking weird at minimum. Or way, she has brainwashed my wife against me, or brainwashed my kid against me. Yeah, so they get in connection through that child that was the troubled child, right? And she may have been the catalyst of sending him to the wilderness camp. I don't remember, but they would have did that shit if given the option. So it wasn't that hard of a jump. But I was gonna go back to the oldest daughter. She had written in the book that once. Well, actually, no. I'll come back to this because it goes more into the timeline. This is why you write these things down and script it in YouTube land. But this is so they get in touch. Jodie immediately sinks her fingers into Ruby. She has this big platform. That's awesome. I can project all these thoughts onto her very large audience. She has over 2 million subscribers. And when everybody started calling Ruby abusive for her own behavior that she did towards her kids. There's a clip of her losing her fucking mind because her kid was doing a TikTok dance to Low. Apple bottom jeans, boots with the fur. She started crying. She was like sobbing, like, this is not of truth. This is not. And I'm like, bitch, they have it in grocery store commercials. Calm the fuck down.
Like, oh my God. Like religion, bro.
So people were noticing her getting very, very even weirder than usual. And that's when Ruby decides to leave and come back as Moms of Truth or whatever the fuck. And they were selling classes on how to raise your kids in truth, whatever the fuck that means. And it was a lot of, you know, anti liking your children. Like they like basically
I saw a clip where Ruby was like, your children have no personal or private space in this home because it's your space. You're the parent. I was like, oh my God, why'd you have them?
Why did you have them? Because again, she feels like they were forced upon her as if you didn't decide to have 6 kids. You had 6. If you knew you didn't like it after the first one, why did you have more, bitch?
It's so crazy.
Like, so they start Connections with an X, or it might have already existed, but Ruby comes into Connections. They're doing a bunch of like online classes on how to be a terrible mother, and a lot of retreats and shit too.
I see what Ruby on the back of Jodie's jet ski and thing. I'm like,
gay. It was gay.
Gay.
You gay. You're gay.
That's what this is. It was funny listening to the husbands talk about, oh, my wife would be upstairs in the room for Jodie for like 5 hours and they'd come down and they'd be on cloud 9. I'm like,
because they was eating coochie, which was proven. Well, not proven, but I'll get to that. That comes up in the book.
Ooh, someone. Okay, I'm just listening.
So anyway, she starts moving Jodie in. All of a sudden, she having seizures and shit on their floor, talking about how she sees spirits. She having visions and shit. And the husband, Kevin, who's kind of like there-ish, but he doesn't seem particularly interested in raising the kids. He's just like, or maybe they just never showed him on camera. But also, you showed everybody else. It seems odd that you never show him on camera. So it leads one to believe that he just wasn't very present and condoned however they ran everything. But now, as your therapist, she's moving into your house and telling you that you can't sleep in the bed with your wife. And he's like, well, she told me I was an addict and I had all these terrible things with me and I need to fix myself for my marriage. So, okay, I moved out of the room. And in the book that the eldest daughter made, there's a section where she's like, I remember Jodie and Ruby in the middle of the night sneaking into each other's rooms. And one time I was walking by and they had lit candles and had body oil and shit. And something about Jodie not being a very like giving lover. I forget how she found that out, but I'm like, gay, just be gay.
That's all it is. Like Jodie wants to be with these women and she sees their husband and children as evil pieces of shit in the way of her happiness.
Of being in happy gay relationships. And no, yes. Love, what's in the way is your trauma and psychoses, bitch. And religious trauma. And I mean, the thing that I always found interesting in like the documentary space is that or like people reacting to documentary spaces is they always seem to be like surprised when a perpetrator has like a dark past or whatever. And I'm like, no, I assumed she was assaulted. Yes. I assumed this is the behavior of someone who has certain...
The root causes of crime are more trauma and issues that we as a society need to
are
address.
Not fixing, are not addressing. So like with the niece that was with Jodie, there were, you know, church members seeing that they had tape all over her mouth. all over their mouth, or like, and they would be like, "Is everything okay? Oh, she's fine. She's fine." It's like, so you see this, you think
Well,
this
that's
is weird.
again, no one's ever gonna talk about how like I feel like it's so funny. Like you'll watch things. It's like when I was talking about serial killers and shit the other day, and the
No,
XYZ
yeah.
is like, when are we going to talk about the fact that being a religious zealot is a half being a religious zealot is a license for a host of abuse. Like period. I'm like, yo, you ain't see it? Like we don't see like how homophobia and all this bullshit leads to all of this.
No, it's just Jodi is a monster. And it's like, yes, Jodi is, I mean, the word monster like turns her into this like,
she's a sick bitch.
She's a sick bitch with trauma that never handled it, and instead tried to learn therapeutic methods to exert power, particularly on men and children.
People who she felt like abused her when she was not in a place to be able to like fight back, defend herself, and now here she is as an adult,
and then existed in a place that she could not go to anybody about it and for them to do anything. And it's like, instead of acknowledging how the LDS church doesn't give a fuck about abuse, and a lot of churches don't, a lot of religious zealot areas don't give a fuck about it.
I don't know why people don't see that religion in and of itself is somebody putting you at gunpoint and telling you like do this or else. Like that's what it is. Like,
so
that doesn't mean there aren't like positive things that can be abstracted from religion. I believe there are lots of good like schools of thought that are not God ordained that have good things that you can abstract. That's not to say religion doesn't have any good morals or values, that there are no good people that are religious or X, Y, Z. But ultimately, what it is quite literally like a cosmic manifestation of the criminal system. The one we live in society that says like good and evil is a binary, and if you're good, you're free, you're bad, you go to jail and prison. I don't know why we don't see, like, we've been told the same system, like, hey, if you're a good person, you go to heaven, you're a bad person, you go to hell. And so
I remember,
do it or else.
I remember something was off because I would have a thought that would fuck with something in the binary. I remember thinking like, wait, if only people that accept Jesus Christ as the Lord or Savior go to heaven, what happens to people that have never
heard about him?
Oh
my God, bitch. I asked Miss Tooth that in RE class in grade 7 and got kicked out. Miss Tooth put me out that bitch immediately.
I was like, what about all the people before Jesus Christ? Didn't he just come out of like 2,000 years ago? What happened?
Miss Tooth said her first answer was faith. And then I said, no, but you're not hearing me. If they've never heard about, I was like, there are people in the world, I'm assuming, like they've not heard about God and Jesus and faith. And what then? And she was like, go to your homeroom. Get out. Get out this class.
It's like, okay. Like, I remember like I said something along the lines of like, I don't get it. Like, why? And then my mom was like, we don't ask God why. And I'm like, what? that my thing is that church people make God sound like an asshole. So like, why would you?
Bible makes God sound like an asshole. You turn around, I'm gonna turn you to salt, bitch. You fucking ate the apple and cursed forever. All your people are gonna fucking die now. The Bible makes God sound like that. From the very beginning, describes him like if there was a protagonist in any show, movie, book, or whatever that was giving it up like God, we'd say, wow, you're a petty. It's like, oh, God loves all his children, but also I don't like how y'all are behaving, so I'm gonna fucking drown the earth. I'm gonna drown all you. Drown and kill all of you.
I'll never forget telling my church's dirty laundry. This is funny. So my church, I call it that. I ain't been there in like 15 years, but the one I grew up in had a bishop, old dark-skinned bald, and he had a son who was a light-skinned pretty. And there was a period when the bishop wanted to go around the world and spread the gospel. So he gave the main church over to the son. And the son was a millennial, and the old did not like that. They did not fuck with that. They said he be doing all this new shit. He want people to text and yada yada yada. It was very funny. But he had a series that he just called Y, just the letter Y. And it was a series.
Well, you could ask why.
And you could ask why. And he said, text in the number. Text in this number with your question and we'll find a scripture to like answer your question. And I was like thinking, oh, I would have been like 14-ish. And I was like, this seems like a bad idea. So somebody was like, why is there so much child death in the world? Like, it seems like we talk about like a healing God and a merciful God, and it feels like children are the most innocent. Why is there so much like famine and war and all these things that kill children in particular? He went in the Bible and basically, if I remember correctly, he did the story of the plague coming through and killing all the firstborn children of the, if you didn't put blood on the door or whatever. If you didn't put
in Egypt, it's
right. If you didn't put lamb's blood
and
on
all
there,
the shit came to you, all the not Horcruxes,
the locusts,
yes,
yeah. And he was like, and there's other places where children just be dying, and his end note was, it just be happening sometimes. And I was like, and it was supposed to be a multi-week thing. He was gonna do like several weeks of the Y
and that
series,
1 week wrapped it up.
and we did not say shit after that. We just moved along because funny story about how, you know, kids just be dying isn't satisfying to the fucking audience who was looking for something to believe in. Because I remember they would also do testimonials, because they would, you know, they treat religion like a genie thing, where it's like, if I pray enough, if I do enough. And then I remember being very confused about like what constitutes going to heaven, because I was like, so wait, don't curse, don't drink, don't have sex before marriage. There's plenty of people in the Bible that did those things, so I guess they didn't go. But y'all have a whole fucking David was fucking married women and shit, wasn't he?
They said he said sorry for his sins, obviously, Kenny.
But like, I could be a fucking menace, but if I whisper "sorry, Jesus" in my last breath, then it's all like, is that it?
I used to think about this every day as a kid. I was like every day, because I used to feel like I gotta pray at the end of the night and say sorry for all my sin in that day, and I'd be like, wait, what if something happened to me? But what if something happens to somebody before they get to ask for their daily forgiveness? So
I remember my mom, very anxious woman, R.I.P. But not. She was a virgin until marriage, not because there was any like more like there was a religious anxiety, particularly around sex, that if she had sex before marriage, that would be when God would come down
and kill her, like for the rapture,
and like for the rapture, and then she won't make it because she was getting clapped. And I remember she found out I lost my virginity, and she was like, what if God? And I was like, he didn't come down for slavery. You think he coming down because I'm getting conventional?
What if God?
I was like, he was like, what did he do to deserve you? And I was like, he was offering dick and I was ovulating. It was literally that simple. I'm not in love with him. I'm not trying to marry him. It is literally just that. Like, that is it. Yeah, that's because you don't go to church. That's the problem. You've been acting wild and out because you don't go to church no more. I'm like, okay.
Oh my God, you don't go to church no more.
But yeah.
I was raised Jehovah's Witness. I've never told you that. My bitch gasped.
Oh, can I send you a video if it don't cause you too much trauma?
Not regular childhood trauma. It's not super religious based.
Because there was this guy that I watched, he did movie reviews, and then he made a random video like 5 years ago. He's like, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and they don't let me watch movies. And that's how I got excommunicated from the church. My question for Jehovah's Witnesses has always been, why are you recruiting if you only think a finite number of people can go up there?
You're licking my face? Oh, you would have loved me today? I appreciate that. That's nice of
Yeah, I'm
you.
cool with you today.
Oh, yeah, okay. You leaving?
fuck
All
with
right.
you.
She said that was
All
it. That was your love quota. Goodbye. Enough. You have
I was
people
like,
seeing me on camera
if
being
you only
soft.
think 144,000 people can get up there, why are you recruiting? I would like my chances to be better.
Let me tell you. Here's the thing. So the Bahamas, it's so funny because my parents managed to give me an incredibly traumatic childhood without any like system or like any logic, external belief or addiction or anything. Like my parents don't drink. They don't drink. They don't go out. Like
they just like that sober.
I promise you, like, despite the fact that like we were raised like y'all are Jehovah's Witness, we're Jehovah's Witness. I grew up on a constitutionally Christian island. Everybody else, like my parents, were not people who. My parents never went to church, never went to Kingdom Hall, and never went to any of those places. But they did have us like. Again, the island is constitutionally Christian, so I still had to like do religion in school, like study Christianity in the schools. And then my parents had like at one point in time they got us like a religious tutor, like a Kingdom Hall teacher, like the Jehovah's Witness. They would come to our house, so we wouldn't go like to Kingdom Hall really, but they would come to our house and teach us. But that got wrapped up very quickly when I like didn't like the ladies like what she was telling me heaven was. I was like, oh. So that's whack. I don't want to like that sounds horrible. Like she was like, yo, heaven. Listen, hey, don't get me started on how they've never sold heaven to me.
Like, every time they've always described heaven to me, they made it sound like Mar-a-Lago, and I don't want to go to that bitch.
Whack. Why would heaven be lit? Like, does that like when you think about that? Like, think about what church and the constraint of religion is like. Is anybody? Are you fighting to go to church? Why would I like what heaven? Anyway, let me don't start. Let me not say that for God. Tell me to hell. Anyway, but the thing about my parents is they were like my parents once in a blue moon would offer like, oh, this is because of a Jehovah's Witness or this belief, and it would be so fucking stupid and disjointed. Like my parents definitely didn't care about like fuck your birthday, fuck the holidays, fuck all of this or whatever because we Jehovah's Witness. Like they gave us maybe like one Christmas, like, but other than that, fuck all.
Are you
fuck
sure
all
it wasn't
joy.
are you sure it wasn't just pure
That's what
laziness?
I'm saying. Just not even laziness. Active, don't give a fuck. Like active, fuck your childhood, fuck your joy.
It's
but
like
it's so funny
use this as an excuse for it.
Let me tell you, when my mommy, I cannot think of one time my mom outside of just not forgetting Christmas and your birthdays and all these different things, like they ain't celebrating all those things as Jehovah's Witness. Outside of that, I can't think of one time except that my parents was on some Jehovah's Witness time until this moment. My senior year of high school, my parents had gone to Nigeria. My mommy got malaria, and my mommy was in a coma for like a month or so, a couple months. My daddy was like pretending for like a long time. Because me and my little sister were away in boarding school. So my mom was in a coma, and we didn't know. Like, and my daddy was like sending email, like pretending to like be her or something very cool. But like, but my little sister eventually like these responses are not. Like they ain't giving my stoic Nigerian daddy versus my Bahamian mommy. So like my family's like, what the fuck? Like mommy and like Femi eventually like one afternoon decides to like blow up like my mommy's shop, and eventually my Grammy like can't take the heat. And she's like, the air lifted up. Like my Grammy like blows up the whole thing. My Grammy's like, yeah, mommy, she in a coma. Oh Lord, my babe. Listen, the stress. I remember that was the first time my little sister and my daddy got into it. Like my little sister was hot, yelling at him, right? Like I remember because they called us to like the nurse's office, and we was there like, yes, this is where they're making us stay for the day. But I tell like to say, my mommy's in a coma, and my mommy needs a blood transfusion to save her life. My daddy consents to the blood transfusion to save her life. My mommy comes out the coma talking shit about how mad she is that he got her this blood transfusion because she's Jehovah's Witness. Bitch, what? Never, girl, what? I'm like, we are not real practicing Jehovah's Witness, girl. What are you talking about?
You can't, wait, what
oh,
is
they
this?
Believe, let me see if I can find a reason. Why are Jehovah's Witness? She didn't even explain the logic. against blood trans. Yep, they knew it was first thing. Their interpretation of biblical scriptures command abstaining from blood. They believe that obeying his command is an. Let me see what make it make sense. You must not. They could. Oh, this is even stupider than I thought. You must not eat blood. Jehovah's Witnesses view blood as sacred, representing life itself, which belongs to God. So once blood has been removed from the body, they believe it should be disposed of, not re-administered, even in a medical emergency. They readily accept forms of medical care and surgery, provided they don't involve blood or its primary components, red blood cells, white blood cells, blah, blah, blah. They actively seek out physicians and hospitals skilled in bloodless surgery techniques. Like, yeah, like my mommy, they convinced,
Okay.
like my mommy believes spiritually you're being affected, other people blood in you and la 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 la. Nah, it's nonsense. Nonsense. But I do know my daddy was so fucking mad. Like, my daddy was so mad. Like, they sounded like two halves of two ridiculous ass coins. Because on one hand, my mommy is like, how dare you give me a blood transfusion to save my life? Consent to blood transfusion. And on the other hand, my daddy sounded like King Narcissus, like, I saved her life. I saved her life. That's it. And I'm like, okay, swole on. Beauty. Like, well, hey, one might say you almost killed her. You took it to Nigeria.
Wait, isn't there like shots and stuff you have to get before going in? Nigeria?
Yeah, and I think she did them. I don't know. I think she did them. I think she had to do them. But I know my mom, and I know the story my daddy say is she was buying fruit and thing off the road in Nigeria. That's what my daddy say. Now, I wasn't there. Who's to know for? But I do know definitively that the bitch was down bad with malaria. Like, it was almost her final day.
God.
But yeah, that is.
I always learn so much through our conversation. But to round it out, the final like thing that happened is that Jodi kicks out the husband Kevin, stays in the house with Ruby. They become incredibly close, arguably sexual, definitely business partners, and they begin, particularly once the oldest children were out of the way, particularly the oldest son, who was kind of the black sheep and the lightning rod for a lot of the aggression. Once he was an adult and he kind of left for college, it seemed like the ire transitioned to the two youngest children. Hence how we end up with Ruby sending her children to Jodi's home. Jodi's home is a $5 million mansion.
That like anybody get a question?
Nobody questioning. Do you know? I don't know any person. What is she doing to make $5 million?
She said
house?
Saving souls, Kenny.
Souls expensive as fuck. I make delightful content every day. I ain't got a $5 million fucking. Some people text me and say, "You brighten my day." I'm so happy. I ain't got a $5 million mansion. So what are you doing? What are you doing, miss? Something ain't right. Something ain't right. So she brings the kids to the home over the summer, where for the next X amount of months, systematically abusing, physically, emotionally,
tying them to chairs with rope,
tying them to chairs, putting honey and cayenne in their wounds, hog tying them, making them work in the garden in 100-degree weather with no sunscreen, no water,
up on a trampoline for 6 hours at a time in the desert heat, and if they stop for a second, they get beat and prodded with cactus and shit.
Yeah. There was one where they were accusing the son of, quote, stealing water because they were outside in 100-degree weather and he got some from the hose. And it had almost gotten to the point that they were going to bring they were going to sell off this $5 million home and go to an even more secluded home in the Utah desert. And I believe if that had happened, those children would be dead.
Yeah, she lived, and in their evil like journal logs, it was literally like, we're gonna make the kids think they have a moment of peace, and then just like that, we're gonna plot them in the middle of the desert. And like they knew, they were actively describing and recognizing the abuse that they were doing to the kids, and they knew it was that because they were hiding it from the authorities, and they knew what to hide, and they knew like, fuck all this, like, oh, the cult and she was in control and blah blah blah, whatever. Them bitches knew exactly what they was doing. They was hiding it.
The thing that gets me hot, and maybe this is me not really understanding this type of psychological manipulation or whatever, but I really don't fuck with the amount of like, Ruby wasn't this bad.
Right.
She wouldn't have been, like, maybe she wouldn't have been this creative.
Right.
Maybe she wouldn't have gone this far.
Right.
But I don't know about you, but there ain't a whole lot of times you could tell me to beat my child and starve them where I'm like, you know what, this is the appropriate way.
Right. Like somebody could just come in at your big age. You have 6 children. You've raised several of the children. Like you're deep into being a mother, like into your time of having kids.
I do not believe that you can coerce a person to start abusing their child like this unless they already fucking hate their kids.
Right.
And now they have an authority figure saying it's okay. You can actually hate them more aggressively now.
Right.
Like,
you're not doing enough. Actually,
you're not doing enough.
Bigger.
You could actually dream bigger, bring in different textures, different temperatures. Like you could isolate that.
Jodi could have worked for the U.S. government.
I mean, bitch, she was keeping the little girl in the fucking panic room.
Yeah, and and telling us, oh, she could go. I'm gonna put her and have her sit in the pantry.
And they don't really talk about that. That girl didn't talk for a very long time.
Literally, they like the police and the child just.
That child did not feel comfortable talking for a very long time. And then how this all came to a head is that the youngest son was able to escape. He ran to 3 different houses, and then the last one answered, and it was an older couple. And yeah, you do hear the conversation to the police where old man is just brought to tears. He's like, this child has been abused. Like this child has been, wow, this is really terrible. And I just get very frustrated by this kind of like, wow, yeah, that's crazy. Nobody knew. No, she had gotten her license taken away for sharing people's business. She violated HIPAA violations and said that one of her patients was a porn addict and said that to his Mormon college, and that's how she got her fucking license taken away because she
crazy.
Yes. And she was like, well, I thought it needed to be done. He needed it, it had, desperate measures. And those schools will charge you fines for shit like that. They'll kick you out for watching porn or drinking. Like, we could go into a whole conversation about religious colleges because there's so much abuse that goes on there, but they end up saying, well, it makes our school look bad, or why were you drinking? Yeah. How did you get drugged if you shouldn't have been drinking? Right. It's like, okay, fuck that. There's somebody going around raping everybody, but like, well, you had a beer one time. So yeah, you put yourself in that position. Okay. There's a lot of that. And so she's sharing pornography watching once or twice to that type of environment.
You're causing the man his job.
Cause the man his job, kick people out of schools. Also, ironically, Ruby's husband, now ex-husband, because he eventually divorces her.
When she went to prison.
He's a professor at one of those Mormon places, Mormon universities, BYU.
Of course.
And he doesn't talk to the oldest kids. He was trying to get the oldest one arrested because she came in and she didn't want them. The oldest child had been calling CPS for a very long time.
Listen, I was saying there was tons of police reports and things.
The oldest child was calling CPS. Jodi Hildebrandt, the niece, had filed several police reports, and they just said, well, whatever. So this bullshit of, yeah, we just had no idea. That's
And
a
trying to
fucking
give them
lie.
credit, like, oh, once they got the starving child, they're like, we're gonna investigate. Oh, fuck off.
Fuck off. That every person that's ever worked with her said that she's fucking with people's lives. She doesn't have her license, but she's still being recommended as like one of the main therapists that people go to at this church or whatever, or around satellite churches and shit. Like, fuck out of here. Everybody knew. Everybody fucking knew. And interviewing these goddamn, maybe they didn't know it was that severe.
I'm like, this is Netflix new trend of doing these documentaries on these like podunk white towns where they're doing all kind of evil shit to the children, and everyone's like, nobody knew.
And it's like, fuck off. Y'all did know. Y'all did not care. Y'all protected abusers.
And listen, and there's so many levels to it. It's so like, just like how in the Unknown Number documentary you could see the Blue Lives Matter flag. They also had the Blue Lives Matter flag on the wall.
Yeah, of course.
And everything. It's like that's all. And
and it's fucked up because it's like the cycle will not end because y'all don't see it. Y'all don't see it. Y'all don't see the cycle.
You don't see that as a cycle.
You see, it's like this one woman was
one
just
little
insane.
lady got carried away.
Two, perfectly fine, perfectly fine, white. Jodi even used to be pretty. It's crazy. Like, that was a weird section of the documentary that they basically showed these pictures of her as a teenager when she was young, and she was like, she used to be gorgeous. She was a beauty queen. Like, wow.
They're like, oh, she was thin.
She was thin at one time. She was
obviously stunning back then, and now,
it must have been her fatness that made her evil or something. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, she's traumatized, and she, instead of getting that fixed. And again, there's just something really gross, particularly about someone bastardizing the profession of therapizing, because that's particularly egregious. It's like, people are going to you for assistance in their darkest hours, and then you are this and you're trying to fuck them. Like,
let's
talk about that in general.
On the whole nature of having like church people be counselors and stuff in and of itself. That's what I keep saying. Like, it's all just so like in keeping to me.
And like, we can even talk about that, even like how awful and how many boundaries are crossed by her just living with her couples, let alone having sex with them. Like, there's so many boundaries that she has crossed way before we even got to the fucking child abuse. Fucking terrible. Everyone's terrible. Everybody dropped the ball.
You and your clients are not supposed to be out jet skiing. Your therapist, like, you and you ever been out kicking it with your therapist, like she's your homegirl?
I'm gonna tell you something when this is off, because I got something very funny to say. Not my therapist, a different situation. But like, yeah, it's it just pissed me. I just ended with that. The documentary, that's the only documentary I've seen about this. I've been following it for the last 2 years or so. Yeah. I've been following it through like true crime people that follow certain things, and particularly people that don't tend to. Some true crime people are weird. But if you find
I actually don't watch any like true crime people on YouTube, but my little sister watches them. She watches like one.
I like Rotten Mango. But the thing is, she be doing cases that make me sad, so I can't go about my day. Like, she be doing shit. Because she does true crime literally all around the world, and I think that is kind of I don't want to say nice, but like, there is like an overrepresentation of like pretty white women getting killed in like the true crime space. And so like, everyone else that is a victim kind of gets pushed to the wayside. Yeah. And she does a lot in other places, which, if you ever listen to Indian true crime, that shit fuck my day up.
Oh no. I've seen Rod Mango pops up on my shit all the time. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I've never actually watched any of it.
She actually did a great breakdown of the Ruby Franke thing. She did like a 4-parter, and it kind of
I'm
goes
gonna
into
look
like
into it.
all the.
I think like the defense attorney in me, the defense
Mhm.
attorney abolitionist in me needs to talk about like those kinds of things in a very specific,
Particular
distinct
way,
way.
yeah.
I'm not going to get from anybody because then like,
I mean,
like
that could also be another niche of yours if you
I'm
want to.
like,
But
listen,
then, but also it's like, do I want to?
it's
Well,
so
I mean,
like
I thought
honestly
your
the
most
kind
recent
of like
video.
thoughts I have, like certain kinds of like require so much to be able to like give them to like I feel like YouTube in general tends to be a place where it feels like it's come to a consensus on a particular like how they see particular kinds of things and the whole YouTube just kind of goes with it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I'd
Yeah.
be like, and a lot of the things that I'm like, it requires me to do so much to like first divorce you like from that, like, you know what I mean? Like you just watch my like there's
Yeah.
there are no monsters, only people. Bitch, that's so much work. Like
Yeah. I mean,
just
but I do think it's important because like it's a lot of the sentiments that you put in that video was some of the sentiments that I felt about the space and how we talk about. You talk more about like how we turn serial killers in particular into these like kind of mythical
yeah.
dehumanized figures. But I remember I want to word this carefully because a lot of people tend to get very uncomfortable because I think they do it in an effort to preemptively stop a lot of the stigma around mental health. But I remember over the years I would ask questions. I'm like, essentially like, I don't believe that because you have X mental illness that made you do it, but
Mhm.
it is a component and a factor as
Right.
well as many other factors. And I remember I had talked about how there was this documentary years ago where a woman was talking about offenders who have uh, DID, dissociative identity disorder.
Mhm.
Um, and there were some people that were very heated that I would watch it. They were like, that's unfair because like a lot of people with DID are just people with a lot of trauma. And I was like, so are these people? They just happen to be offenders.
Right.
Like they still may have the disease, just
Right.
how it came out is really
Right.
bad. But
Right.
that's not to say everybody that has DID is a serial killer, but
I
because there's so much overrepresentation of it, that's where a lot of people's
I
heads
just
go.
I wish people would understand that a lot of the things they think are extreme, like or we agree are extremes or horrible things, you conditioned the root part of that. Like for me,
Mhm.
Jody, is it crazy to me that people who you give religion and turn into like religious zealots and you tell them this is what I'm saying about a grain of homophobia versus you know what I
Mhm.
mean? If you tell people, "Oh, yeah, homophobia is God ordained," like, you know what I mean, and all these different things, will it be shocking when they abuse gay people? Like if you tell
And
them, "Oh,
also if they are gay,
if they are gay and they hate themselves and
they
they turn
internalize
into
that and then externalize that.
that's what
Yeah,
I'm
that's
saying.
what
Like
that
all these different
happens.
things. I'm like, if you give people religion that tells them women are not equal to men and tell them, oh, they that men supposed to run it, is it shocking to me that when those people go then and beat women or rape women or kill women? No, it's not. Like, I just wish people would like, please accept that the things you think are good and you think are just fine. You think you're a little patriarchy and your gender roles and you're all this bullshit.
Mhm.
It all is the next thing. I'm just so sick and tired of people acting like, at the extremes,
Yeah,
while
it's
in
like
the same breath we normalize the beginning of it. It's like, okay, like to me again.
sure, this cocktail, this specific number exploded in a very extreme way, but there's plenty of people day to day abusing kids, and that's very normalized.
People all around the world. I just like again. Let me tell you. Let want me to get on my fucking square about organized religion, but organized religion is literally just the opposite. Like organized religion and cult and wicked shit and abuse is on a sliding scale. I don't give a fuck what you say. I'm like it's so crazy. People,
Like, I think what's been very interesting, like, as a person who is. Hi. What's up? Okay. She just came to look at me. She was like, okay. And then she just walked away. As a person who was raised very religious and has progressively year over year divorced myself from it, because I think I've kind of talked to you about this. Like,
Yes.
I was raised very religious, very conservative socially, and in many ways politically, because it's
It
not
goes hand in
that, it
hand.
goes hand in hand, right? And so
Yeah.
like and there was always a part of me that was like, I don't know if I fully believe this, but this is the right way or whatever. And
Right.
then I grew up and went to college, and the distance helped a lot.
Yeah.
And I think the
That's why I
final
wanted the religious niggas to be anti-college. Oh, these liberal arts colleges are indoctrinating, brainwashing my kid. Because, like,
because they learn that that's fucking wild. The
right.
type of things that you meet more people, you humanize more people, you have more experiences. And then I came back home, and I was like, that was the final break. And I was like, oh, you are insane. And then I was like, I gotta move today. How the fuck do I get out of here now?
Today.
It was like progressively, and then now I'm like the rabid liberal, I guess, or whatever they think I am.
Right.
But not liberal.
Right.
Definitely.
Liberal is a slur in our space.
Liberal. Well, and also just inaccurate. I feel like
Right.
the older I get, the more leftist I am.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about only when you stay in a very particular bubble are these type of systems maintained. And
Absolutely.
I feel like there's a certain there's something to be said about if people learn more and meet more people and have more empathy and have more open-mindedness, that they tend to leave conservatism.
Exactly.
I think there's something to be said that the more intelligent you get, you tend to leave conservatism.
Those views tend to require some level of isolation from like some
and just blind acceptance.
Yeah.
That
right, faith. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, religion inherently primes people to believe. You know what I mean? To just this is what it is, and be aggressively about this, and don't question it. It like primes people for like to not allow something to make sense, to not even think it needs to.
And also, it allows for this kind of genification of human beings. Like, God used XYZ person to do this miraculous thing. Who am I to say that Jodi Hildebrandt isn't a tool of Christ or his you know? So in the same way that a minister or a pastor or any other faith leader, because there's a lot of that too, like a lot of they are leaders for a reason, don't speak ill of the man of God, and da da da. And yeah. I'm just thinking back. I'm just thinking about a lot of wild shit that happened at the church. Yeah.
That's how I feel about the whole island. Somebody from who's constitutionally Christian, like that's why I listen, I
guess I'll say this: like, if you want to have a relationship with religion, there's nothing I think inherently wrong with that. I think there's merit to making it a personal thing as opposed to like a evangelizing thing. I don't get what you get from it, but at the end of the day, maybe you do, and also the process of decentralizing maybe
I think I wish people would just treat like their religion like the same way we treat other schools of thought, and extract what is valuable and not the other things. But there's an inherent problem. I do have a problem with religion because there is a problem, period. If any school of thought that you take, but any school of thought, even ones you like, if I'm an abolitionist, but I suddenly now tell you God sees it, you know what I mean, this way, it'll make anything problematic. I'm holding you at gunpoint. It is literally a way to make sure that you are subservient out of there.
Hold on, sorry. And I'll close out soon because we've been here longer than usual, but we don't have Aaron to tell us to stop talking. Right. But like one of the things that my church always said, which always confused me, was like, essentially like, why, if God wants you to do XYZ thing, why doesn't he just make people that do XYZ thing?
Free will.
And free will. And I was like, is it free will when you say if I don't do it, I go to hell? Like, it's like, and I would say that, and I'm an asshole. So, okay. I'm like, and then also like, you you can't earn your way to heaven, but here's a 10-step thing on how you earn your way to heaven. And I'm like, so am I just saved because I'm a child of God, or do I have to do something? Is there a rubric that I need to follow, or am I just whatever the fuck I do? I'm a child of God because I gave my life to Christ that one time or whatever. I remember I used to give my life to
5 of the worst people be Bible thumping, and it's because a lot of the shit, and nobody gonna hear me, a lot of the shit the religion gives you is bad. I'm like, these schools of thought are bad, and that's why they be bad people. That's why only like religious people you like, they're mean to their children, they treat their daughter bad, they're homophobic, they kick you out the house, they judge this one, because what they're being fucking fed is bad. All the good stuff from the Bible, the golden rule and shit, you can take that. That doesn't need to be attached to Christianity or Islam or any of these other religions. But y'all, everybody can shoot me with a big gun. All I'm saying is I've never seen positive press of Mormonism.
Oh God. And that too. I've seen a lot of documentaries, I say, in the last 2 years or so about some Mormon shit. And in fairness, what are you doing? She buried a bone in here before, and I think she's trying to figure out where she put it. But like, there's so many documentaries I've seen about Mormon related shenanigans. Murder Amongst the Mormons, that was a good one.
Well, I haven't seen that one. I gotta check.
That's when a dude wrote a fake part of the Book of Mormon, and
I gotta go watch that.
And it caused a giant crisis of faith for the whole people. He called it the Salamander Papers. And then he tried to he blew somebody up and then blew himself up, but he survived. And it was a lot going on.
Oh, bitch. Oh, no.
And then there's so many different documentaries of about child sexual abuse, particularly. It's just it's so much.
It ain't good. It's not good. It's not good. Let me get this player.
So yeah, Jodi and Ruby are in jail, and they should be there for anywhere between 4 to 30 years, I believe.
Yeah,
I don't think they said when exactly.
No, they left it up to the parole board. They pled guilty to 4 of the 6 counts, and they gave them 1 to 40 years on each count, and it's up to the discretion of the parole board. So watching them, they white ladies. They're not gonna do.
They're white ladies.
The fact that he made it a 1 year minimum is he was leaving in the leeway for them to get as little as time. Ultimately, trust me.
And ultimately, again, it's a community of peers.
That's what I'm saying. They'll be all right. They will get parole.
Yeah,
they will get it. Yeah.
Well, Jodi might not get it because they could probably blame it all on Jodi, and she's fat now, so that makes her not eligible for a white woman.
Jodi's still gonna get out of it because she can come up with a narrative about how they already had a watch when Jodi come out and she still be doing shit. Why don't you love me? Why don't you sit around? You keep sitting at my foot, but when I want to just hold you, it's not the love you want.
But yeah, that's the story, and that's the lesson.
Stop what you're doing and listen up. You just watched a video on one of my channels, but the Illuminati-verse is huge, and I want to tell you what everything is and how to find it. The Illuminati-verse has 6 channels. On the YouTube homepage of any one of those channels, every single channel in the Illuminati-verse is featured at the bottom of the page, so you can always easily find them, okay? Remember I said that. Don't say I ain't tell you how to find it. Subscribe to my main channel, Illuminati, to find my Illuminati productions, which are my long-form video essays, and also all of my backlog of content. Subscribe to my second love child, Illuminati Pop, for my weekly video essays analyzing my favorite TV and movie shows and characters. Illuminati Pop also has its own Patreon where you get all of those videos uncensored. Subscribe to my channel, Olay and Friends, for my podcast, Olay and Friends. New episodes of Olay and Friends come out every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to Olay and Chill for new episodes of my podcast, Olay and Chill, every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And also, both Olay and Friends and Olay and Chill are both available on streaming platforms like Spotify. Subscribe to Illuminati Bites if you want my takes, but you don't have an hour to spend. Subscribe to Illuminati Politics for my political analysis and my State of the Union type addresses on my show O Squared. And last but not least, subscribe to my Substack Illuminati for my written work.